A Place Called Home by Laurie Wick. Chapter 46. I think it's snowing too hard for Grandma Em and Christine to go home. Silas looked at the minuscule flakes barely falling out of the sky. The men were walking to the stables, and Silas's laughter echoed in the cold air. Are you afraid Christine is going to get away from you if you let her out of your sight? Luke was disgusted at Silas's lack of sympathy. You just wait, little brother. A ridiculous statement, since Silas was only an inch shorter than the twins and a year younger. When you fall in love, it'll be my turn to give you a hard time. Silas was undaunted. Oh, so you finally figured out you're in love? What's that supposed to mean? Well, I've known for some time. Is that a fact? Sure. A blind man could see it. Christine blushed to the roots of her hair every time you got within 10 feet of her, and you spent most of your time trying not to look at her. Luke stopped dead in his tracks, so accurate was the description of his and Christine's relationship a few weeks back. Silas just thumped him on the chest and walked into the barn, still laughing. He was most pleased with himself. Do you think it will snow too hard for us to get home? Christine asked Grandma Em, trying not to sound too excited. I take it you'd rather like spending time with Luke? Grandma Em asked kindly, wanting very much to laugh. Does it bother you that I'm interested in Luke? Would you rather we didn't care for each other? Grandma Em did laugh then. Christine was such a delightful combination of confidence and insecurity. Luke would certainly never be bored with this woman. Christine, I would love nothing more than to see you and Luke in love, married and filling these bedrooms with babies. Christine was surprised, speechless. Marriage? She hadn't thought that far. It caused an incredible flood of apprehension and worries to flow through her head. Was Luke thinking of marriage? What about all the unsolved trouble in Spooner? Maybe Luke didn't really know everything, and if he did, would he still want to marry her? Christine, your face tells me I just opened a Pandora's box, Grandma Em said as she poured 2 cups of coffee. Not until after Christine was seated and sipping her coffee did Grandma Em speak again. It was not my intention to interfere, Christine. What you and Luke do is between the two of you. I'm sorry if I upset you. No, it's okay. You haven't upset me. It's just that I hadn't thought as far ahead as marriage. It's not that the idea is unappealing. It's just new to me and takes a bit of getting used to. Grandma Em reached for and patted Christine's hand. Believe it or not, Christine, I know what you're feeling. Joseph asked me to marry him 4 weeks after we met. He scared me to death. What did you do? I ran. You ran away? Christine was incredulous. Emily Cameron was not a woman who ran from anything. Grandma Em nodded slowly. I told my mother I wanted to go visit my aunt, who lived about 30 miles away. I was there for nearly 2 weeks before Joseph showed up. He was furious. The 3 of us, Joseph, my aunt, and I, sat in the parlor and talked for a bit. Aunt Eleanor was thrilled that a young man had come to see me. She was sure that at 20 years of age I was destined to be an old maid. So when Joseph asked if we could go for a stroll, she was delighted, and I had no time to protest as he nearly dragged me out of the house. I remember we walked and talked. He was so angry that he didn't even speak. Sorry. I remember we walked and walked. He was so angry that he didn't even speak. When we finally did stop, he turned to me with such pain-filled eyes that it nearly broke my heart. We talked for hours. I told him of my fears, and he listened patiently. I was afraid of leaving home and going to live with a man I barely knew. Joseph's practice was still unsettled. I was used to having anything my heart desired. What a materialistic young woman I was. Christine refilled the coffee cups, and Grandma Em went on. After I told Joseph of my fears, he just stood and looked at me for some minutes. When he spoke, Christine, his voice was quiet and deep, his heart in his eyes. I don't know what tomorrow holds, Emily, or if I'll be able to give you all the things your parents have. But I promise you, there won't be a day that goes by that you won't know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that I love you with all my heart. With this, Grandma Em had both her and Christine in tears. Don't, Christine, don't be afraid to talk with Luke. He's very understanding, and if you ever want to share your doubts, I promise he will listen. Christine thanked Grandma Em for her words, and the women continued to talk. By the time Silas and Luke returned, Christine was at ease again. Within the hour, Luke drove the women back to Grandma M's. He stayed for a spell to get warmed up before heading back home. Christine and Luke had a few minutes alone before he left. "Thank you, Luke. It was a wonderful day." "It was, wasn't it? The only thing missing was a good snowstorm that would have stranded you at the ranch a bit longer." "Will I see you tomorrow?" "I doubt it. Knowing that makes Sunday feel a week away." They stood in silence for a few minutes. "I love you, Luke," Christine said, her eyes shimmering with ushed tears. "I love you, Luke," Christine said, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Christy, why are you crying?" Christine didn't know, and could only give a small shrug. Luke was understanding and didn't push for an explanation. He simply drew her against him and held her, his cheek resting atop her head. Much too soon he stepped back. "I have to go." Christine tried to smile. "I'll see you Sunday." "You'd think the way we're acting it was going to be a year." This did bring a smile to Christine's face, and in an instant Luke's lips were on her own. With his lips still touching hers, he said, "Good night, Christy," and was gone.